Hello friends, welcome again. Friends, in our previous video lecture, we discussed romantic comedy of William Shakespeare. In today's lecture, we want to understand a different type of comedy which came into existence in the beginning of the 17th century, which is known as comedy of humor. We are going to discuss important salient features, characteristics of comedy of humor, and we will also have a look at some of the important examples of comedy of humor. But before we move ahead, I request all my viewers to please subscribe to this channel and click on the bell icon so that whenever I upload a new video on English language and literature, you will get the notification very instantly. So friends, with this request, let's begin. Friends, if you want to understand comedy of humor, you need to understand romantic comedy, because romantic comedy, which was innovated by William Shakespeare during the Elizabethan age, during the 16th century, is very much different from this comedy of humor which was innovated by Ben Jonson. In fact, Ben Jonson was a contemporary writer of William Shakespeare. Jonson also lived during this Elizabethan age, but towards the end of the 16th century, he came out with a new type of comedy of humor. Let me begin with Horace Walpole. Horace Walpole, an outstanding philosopher, a thinker, has rightly said that life is a tragedy for those who feel, and life is a comedy for those who think. That means what? Tragedy deals with emotions, feelings. It appeals our heart, appeals our emotions. But on the other hand, comedy deals with intelligence, with wit, with satire, and it appeals our intelligence. So this is the basic difference between a tragedy and a comedy. If you examine the whole history of English literature, drama is generally divided into two different categories: comedies and tragedies. And comedy is one which has a happy ending, and tragedy is one which has a sad ending. Okay? In English literature, if we talk about comedies, we have some various different types of comedies. Like during the 16th century, we have romantic comedy of Shakespeare. Towards the end of 16th and the beginning of the 17th century, we have comedy of humor. Towards the end of 17th century, we get a new type of comedy of manners. Then during the 18th century, we come across a new type of comedy, sentimental comedy, and so on. So these are different types of comedies which we find in English literature. If you go back, the question is, which was the first comedy in English literature? As the students of English literature, friends, you must know that it was Ralph Roister Doister. It's a very rhythmic name, easy to remember. Please remember this title. Why? Because this is the first comedy in the entire history of English literature. Ralph Roister Doister was written by Nicholas Udall and published for the first time in 1566. Then William Shakespeare popularized a new kind of comedy which was known as romantic comedy. But towards the end of the 16th century, Ben Jonson made some innovations, made some changes in this romantic comedy, and he came out with a new kind of comedy which was later on known as comedy of humor. Okay, now humor, the term humor we understand as hasya, laughter. Okay, but friends, remember here the term humor, you don't have to take that meaning. Instead of that, here humor means temperament, humor means nature, humor means whim or fancy. Okay, actually this term humor is a medical term which was used in the by the ancient Greek physicians. Okay, and as per the ancient Greek medical system, there are four major humors or four major elements in human body. And what are they? They are blood, phlegm, choler and melancholy. They are also known as fire, air, earth and water. In our Indian ethos, we also believe that our human existence is made of five elements: Akash, Prithvi, Vayu, Jal or Agni. Okay? In the same manner, in the ancient Greek medicine, they believed that human existence is made of fire, air, earth and water, and our health depends on these four things. Okay? According to these ancient physicians, the human man, his temperament or his nature depends upon these four elements. Okay? If there is an imbalance in these four elements, that means if there is too much heat in our body, we fall ill. Okay? If there is too much cold in our body, or if there is too much dryness in our body, if there is too much moisture in our body, we fall ill, we fall sick. Okay? It disturbs our physical health and also mental health. So human health depends on these four elements. Okay? Now you must be wondering, am I studying physics? Am I studying medicine? No friends, we are not studying medicine, but because Ben Jonson has used these four terms while explaining his type of comedy of humor, that's why we need to understand these four things. Ben Jonson's concept of comedy of humor is based on this theory of four elements. E.4 Evans, an important author of a book, A Short History of English Drama, has rightly said this. I quote, you can read these lines in red color. During the Elizabethan times, this medieval physiology was not treated with complete seriousness, but its vocabulary became a popular fashion in sophisticated conversation, and this again Jonson exploited. So according to Evan, during the Elizabethan times, these four terms became very popular among the people. Okay, people used to use these terms in order to describe the personality, in order to describe the nature and temperament of the people. And Jonson has also used these things in order to describe his characters in his comedies. Ben Jonson believed that just as a man has in his physique a dominant humor, similarly he has in his psyche a dominant passion. Okay? In our psychology also, every man has some dominant element. Some people are highly humorous, some people are highly serious, some people are highly funny. Okay, so one particular whim, one particular element predominates, and that makes him a serious character or a comic character. Jonson clarified, because Jonson himself wrote a comedy of humor, and in one of his comedy of humor, Every Man Out of His Humor, this is the title of his comedy. There Jonson has clarified that he was taking the word humor from medicine field and was using it as a metaphor for the general disposition. Disposition means nature of man. Okay, so these words, four words, are actually four elements are taken as metaphors by Ben Jonson. Okay, he himself has said that when someone peculiar quality does so possess a man that does draw all his effects, his spirits, and his powers in their conclusions all to run one way, this may truly be said to be a humor. In short, in these 5 lines, Ben Jonson wants to say that out of these 4 elements, if one predominates, it creates imbalance of his psychology, and that creates humor in his life. And Jonson wanted to present such imbalance among all his characters whom he has presented in his comedy of humors. Okay, so humor or laughter comes out in Ben Jonson's comedy when any one such whim or any one element or fancy is presented in an exaggerated manner. Okay, he presents imbalance of these things among his characters, and this creates laughter in his comedies. So these unusual personalities are presented, and that creates laughter, that creates humor. If I look at the important features of comedy of humor, then you can say that Ben Jonson's comedies are based on realism. They are full of realism. That means his comedy has nothing to do with imagination as we generally see in William Shakespeare's romantic comedies. Here the characters are on the ground. Okay, they stick to the ground, and reality of life, realistic characters, realistic stories are presented. There is not much scope for imagination. Moreover, Jonson presents very trivial subjects. Trivial means petty subjects, very mean subject matters for his comedies. Okay, so his comedies are dealing with day to day, everyday life of modern man. Modern man means the man of his times. Okay, number 3, his comedy of humor here, they are character oriented comedies. Here, characters are more important than plot construction. Okay, so story is less important. Characters catch our eyes, catch our attention. And number 4, which is more important, is that here in all these characters, major characters that he presents, the focus is more on one particular imbalance of element. Okay, as I told you about these 4 elements, right? The dramatist tries to present a kind of imbalance among these 4, and the focus is on the whim, on the temperament, on the imbalanced psychology of the character, and that creates humor. And number 5, Ben Jonson also presents satire. Satire means kataksh. Okay, he presents satire on the characters whom he has presented. So these are the 5 important elements of comedy of humors. If you want some more examples, then Ben Jonson's comedy Every Man in His Humour, published for the first time in 1598. See, friends, remember, this is the first comedy of humor written by Ben Jonson. Second one written by Ben Jonson himself, published in 1599, Every Man Out of His Humour. Then Chapman and Middleton and Massenet, other writers also followed Ben Jonson's this type of comedy, and they published Old Fools in 1604, a trick to catch the old one, published in 1605, and A New Way to Pay Old Debts, published in 1625. But friends, this type of comedy did not last long. It became popular in the beginning of the 17th century, but towards the middle of the 17th century, people stopped watching such plays. So it lost its popularity. So friends, now let's conclude by saying that comedy of humor, which is innovated by Ben Jonson, it became popular in the beginning of the 17th century. These types of comedy are full of realism, they are character oriented comedies, and there is no element of imagination. The story deals with the everyday life of the people, and this comedy lost its charm in the middle of the 17th century. Later on, towards the end of the 17th century, we come across a new type of comedy which is known as comedy of manners, which we are going to discuss in our next lecture. So friends, here we come to the end of this discussion. Please like and share this video among your friends, among other groups of English literature. Thank you very much.